All right, here we go, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session of the UGA Terry College of Business Executive Edge Speaker Series, Driving Organizational Change with Digital Transformation. Presented by the Office of Executive Education, this series features discussions with corporate thought leaders and business school faculty, offering in-depth previews of our cutting-edge executive programs. My name is Jason Parrish, and I'm the Associate Director of Learning Solutions for the Terry Executive Education Center in Atlanta. I'm going to be your host for today and for the continuation of this series right here on LinkedIn Live on select Wednesdays at noon. Today we're going to discuss how digital transformations can and have transformed businesses, and how UGA's upcoming Digital Transformation Symposium can give you the tools and the connections needed to get you there. We hope to give listeners a preview into the thought leadership and discussions that will occur during our upcoming 5-week virtual symposium beginning on September 14th. We would like for this discussion to be interactive, so please feel free to drop your questions right in the chat area, your comments or your questions as we go along. I'd like to start out by introducing my guests for today. First, we have Dr. Rick Watson, faculty lead and one of the original conceptualists for the Digital Transformation Symposium. Dr. Watson is Regents Professor and Chair for Internet Strategy in the UGA Terry College of Business. Next, we have Mr. Brian Mize, President of the Ad Victoriam Solutions, a technology consulting firm based right here in Atlanta, and our title sponsor and co-creator of the symposium. Welcome, Brian and Rick. And just to kick off the conversation, I'd like to have you guys tell us just a bit more about your background, what you do, and how you came to be involved in the tech industry. Rick, if you don't mind, let's start with you.
Yeah, I've been in this industry for a long time. It started when I was an undergraduate at the University of Western Australia, and I did mathematics. And it wasn't applied enough for me. Unfortunately, they had a graduate diploma in computation that they just started. And I learned to program. And I started working. I worked for Telecom Australia in a plastics company and a consulting company, but knew that in the long run, I wanted to be a professor in a business school. So I did additional education, an MBA and a PhD at Minnesota. But I've long been interested in how you get value out of information systems, how you use technology to raise the capital productivity of an organization.
Brian?
Hey, first of all, honored to be here. Thank you so much. I have been working in this field for since about the mid to late 90s. I got a Bachelor of Science degree from Kennesaw State University right here in the Atlanta area. And was fortunate to get involved with cloud technology in 2001, 2002 timeframe through my employer at the time. That has really grown a great career and given me an opportunity over the years to dive down into kind of distributed environments and remote workforces and a host of other things that I think we'll talk about a little bit more today. What it's done is built really a passion for how we can help businesses, or how businesses can take advantage of the technology that is there to really transform what they're doing. We built a company here in Atlanta that specializes in that very thing. And I'll look forward to speaking a little bit more to that as we go on.
Great, thanks guys. So let's talk just a bit more about digital transformation and what it means to organizations. And this question's for both of you guys. Can you talk a little bit more about the benefits of digital transformation and why it is oftentimes a catalyst for company growth?
I can take a little bit, and then I think Mr. Watson will probably, or Dr. Watson, have a lot more. So digital transformation, really how it is a catalyst for companies to grow their revenue. As we have seen over the last several years, particularly through the pandemic, where there is more of a desire to perform work or deliver goods digitally. Companies that were set up and enabled to do that prior to were able to take advantage of gaining access perhaps to supply chains faster than those that weren't, which allowed them to drive their bottom line. They were able to take advantage of distributed workforces. than others that didn't have that transformation already in place. And ultimately, they were able to drive the bottom line through the technology that is out there. I think other avenues of technology are catching up through AI and through other things that really kind of still provide that human-to-human feel that we long for, and transforming an industry or a business to be able to take advantage of that helps to drive that bottom line, helps to deliver better quality products or better experience, really, to their customers across wherever they happen to be and at whatever time they happen to be.
So I'm an old bloke, so I take a longer term perspective than Brian. But if you look at the last 50 years, information systems, the application of information technology to build business systems has been our major improvement device for productivity. It's also improved the quality of our life. And so the sort of systems that were being built when I started were things like telephone billing. And in fact, my wife wrote the software to digitize the telephone book in Australia. You might remember what a telephone book is. We've digitized it completely and got rid of it. But the long-term goal initially was to reduce costs, cost of running inventory, cost of doing an accounting and so forth. And then as Brian mentioned, these days we're much more interested in differentiation. How can a company create a value proposition that is distinctly different for its organization and meet the needs of the customer with minimum inconvenience and absolute delight? And so we're always trying to improve the quality of the organization, its productivity, and the experience for the customer.
That's great, thank you. And what would you guys say then are some of the advantages or pitfalls, for that matter, of implementing digital transformation solutions project?
Doctor?
Yeah, the major pitfall is that 1 in 8 digital transformations is successful. It's not easy to pull it off. And the data I quote is from thousands of cases collected by a colleague in Switzerland. So that's the real challenge. But the companies that can pull it off often grow substantially faster than their competitors. They learn how to be a data-driven decision maker. So it's an important investment for a company, but it really requires a commitment from the top, the very top, in order to pull this off, because you don't want to be one of the 7 out of 8 who spend a lot of money and don't have anything to show for it.
I think to take that a little bit further, even driven from the top, but if the top is not invested in culture change, because it is a significant culture change within an organization. And what we end up with, or what we see quite often, is employees or team members who are fearful of the change that's going to come. Is it going to cost me my job? Is it going to impact my ability to drive my earnings or to drive my career? And an executive team, if they aren't bought into that, if they aren't driving that change really before the change begins, then you're fighting an uphill battle on many of the respects that we talk about, where they can gain buy-in, they can gain a strategic approach, they can bring the subject matter experts to the table, all benefits that the company will get, and then drive that bottom line through user adoption internally, which is going to drive adoption of customers on the outside.
You know, I just add to Brian's point. I had a friend who was a CIO of a major US corporation, and he said his most important job was managing expectations, managing the expectations of those above him and managing the expectations of those below him, so that everybody knows what the end product will be. There are no surprises. But he spent a lot of time just doing that.
Absolutely.
All right, great. And so would you guys say then, when implementing digital transformation projects, can leaders expect to generate ROI or other benefits just from doing that alone?
Let me, if I rephrase the question, can a organization expect to drive ROI when you mention simply through digital transformation? I want to be cautious of saying yes or no, because I think digital transformation, we're talking about transforming an organization, and so I don't think you can just do that and really achieve transformation. If we're talking about moving to, for example, digital transformation that includes building an e-commerce site and allowing customers to come in. You may gain some increase in revenue by people who purchase more, who are able to purchase when they want to, whether it's at night or in the middle of the day or whenever it's convenient to them. Where you're going to miss, though, is you're going to have to now build up your back-end staff to fulfill those orders where you failed to perform the transformation internally. So you've got to look at it really holistically from across the company, and not just only doing digital transformation is going to change us. It really is a transformation.
Yeah, when I talk about digital transformation, I use a model that talks about 3 types of change. And alpha change, which is really the easiest one, is basically substitution. You substitute technology for what someone was maybe doing manually. So it could be replacing a person with a robot. There it's pretty easy to work out return on investment because you know what the old cost and you know what the new costs. But that's not the big payoff. The big payoffs are things like beta change, when you change roles and systems in the organization, and then gamma change, when you change the business model. Now, I don't know that anybody can predict the result of changing their business model. I mean, you're aiming to increase your market share and customer retention and all of those sorts of things. But you might as well throw a dart at a board to try and work out what the return on investment is. These are the big transformations that will differentiate a company. The analogy I have is it moves them to a different mountain of productivity opportunities, but it's a big bet and you have to get right behind that bet and to pull it off. It doesn't work for every company.
So as leaders plan digital transformation projects, what would you guys say they should be considering?
Well, I have a friend in Australia who's an executive coach, and he says leaders change the game, which I think is a good way to think about it. But I introduce my discussions on digital transformation by getting leaders and executives to think about what's the game you're playing, right? And the game for me is improving capital productivity across all forms of capital. I have a 6 forms of capital model. But if you don't know what game you're playing, then it's pretty hard to be successful. But everybody, every organization, even a university or a religion, is in the game of capital productivity. That's the name of the game, and that focuses on the ends, not the means. Digital transformation is a means of improving capital productivity, but make certain know what your ultimate goal is. And then how do you play the game? You build systems. Systems convert capital from one form to another. If you have a team of scientists, human capital, you fund them with economic capital, you give them labs and so forth, and the goal is to create organizational capital, patents, know-how and technology that you can turn into products. And then the modern form of the game is object orientation. And that's when you create someone like Uber by pulling together objects or entities that already exist and connecting them through electronic messaging to create a new service that we enjoy, such as Uber or Lyft or someone like that. So my message, first of all, is know what the game is. And then you're much better at playing if you know what the rules are and the other sorts of things that follow from that knowledge.
Do you have anything to add to that, Brian?
I do. So the question was, what can executives do as they begin looking at digital transformation, I believe was what you had posed. I think there are a few things that one needs to take into account. Certainly the first is knowing why. Dr. Watson mentioned a moment ago that digital transformation doesn't work for every organization. And one reason why I would submit that it doesn't is because people don't know the why. Digital transformation sounds good, so we're going to jump on this, but we don't know why we're doing it. The investment becomes costly pretty quickly. People don't have the buy-in, the culture doesn't adapt to it, and you end up with a failed digital transformation as a result. So knowing the why has to be the first thing, and then communicating that why down across your organization has to be a part of really preparing the culture for the change that's about to come. And as you get that culture kind of rolled out, then you need to plan what the journey will look like. And digital transformation really is a journey. It's something you begin, and then as you are moving down the road, you transform more and more of your organization. And you take this I'm going to steal a term from the Army, a supervise and refine approach. As you're driving down the road and looking at the journey, you have to continually be looking at what's available, what transformations are working. Is the culture adapting to the change? Are your customers responding to it? Is it driving the revenue or the bottom line or the needle that you expect it to? And if not, you have to refine your approach as you're going down the road.
Okay. And Rick, would you add anything as far as why leaders typically would avoid transformation projects from your research and experience?
Yeah, I think one of the problems is change is a scarce resource in an organization. There's a limited amount of change that you can undertake. And you have to be very careful that you manage this. And I think sometimes the high level of change that might be required for a revolutionary digital transformation, not just sort of replacement of one thing with another, but a really significant change that's going to lift you above the marketplace, is pretty daunting. And then people like me quote the 1 in 8 success stories. I'd be pretty cautious as well. I think the other problem is we have a shortage of human capital. Right. I'm sure Brian faces this almost every day. So if you can't find the human capital that you need to execute your digital transformation, particularly finding the right CIO, you might be cautious and put it off until you get the right resources in place.
If I can extend that just a bit, I think the human capital management is a significant portion of the success or lack of success of a transformation, and certainly from the CIO perspective, from the CEO perspective, and all the way down to the individual product owners, having the right people in place that can adopt and adapt to that technology and drive it across the teams as well, planning out for that well in advance instead of getting there and recognizing that you don't have the right personnel in place to affect that change as you're driving.
And Brian referred to cultural change earlier. That's part of your human capital. It might not be the people who are building the system, but the people who are going to use the system also have to be willing to change. And so that's another aspect of the culture of the company. Have you got people who see change as important for their growth and the growth of the company?
Absolutely.
Great. And do you guys have any tips or tricks to integrating that into a company or driving that culture change within the company? Is it what's a good way to go about that, or what do you recommend?
For driving the culture change, I think really we talked a moment ago about knowing the why. Everybody has a why. It doesn't matter what level of an organization you're in. Everybody has a why. And aligning those whys from the person who's going to use it, even the customer who's going to buy from you, all the way up to the CEO, there is an alignment that can be gained. I want to transform my company so that we can provide a better service to our customers. I want to provide a better service to my customers. I want to buy a better service from those that I work with. Aligning the why has to be where you start at. If you don't align that, then people aren't going to have the level of buy-in or become almost the evangelist for what you're doing that you really need them to be.
Let me give you another perspective on that. Patton was one of the great generals of the Second World War, hugely successful. And there's a quote that I picked up recently, and he said, I'm not worried about the enemy learning about my plans. I'm more worried about my troops not knowing what the plans are.
Right.
And if in your organization, if the troops don't know what the plan is, how are they going to execute it?
That's a great quote. I'm going to steal that from.
It was in a book written by the person who started Trader Joe's.
Great.
I haven't been able to find it anywhere else, the source, but it's so good. It's okay to take it, even if it's not quite right. Right?
All right. And Rick, I love that quote. Do you have any other research or projects that you're working on right now related to digital transformation that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I've always done some work in marketing. I have a colleague that I met in Australia, and we've become friends, and we've written about 60 articles together. He's a marketing scholar. And every now and again, I get invited to do a thought piece for marketing people, either as a talk or a paper. And so I was approached recently about innovations in service. And these things take a while. I love them. They're a great challenge. Takes a lot of thinking. I go on a lot of walks and runs to try and work it out. And in the last weekend, I got the pieces together. So, and part of this in my digital transformation course, some of these pieces I put in, this is a new piece. And if you let me share, I'll just show you what the idea is to give people a flavor of how I try to help executives.
All right.
So people work with mental models, and you go through your life picking up these mental models. They help you structure the world and understand the world. And for me, it's a giant jigsaw. You're trying to fit these pieces together. So this is what I did on the weekend. The thing we've been asked to do is think about service or offerings. And so I have a model, the 5 systems model. I have a talk I do on cognitive computing, linking it to the systems. And then my friend said, here's a way of thinking about offerings. There's a spectrum from tangible to intangible. And so you can think of the top layer for a company is, how do you move across this spectrum? And I'll give you some examples in a minute. And that's your system of framing. And your framing is, what's the value proposition you're offering to your customers? What are you telling them, right? Now, for Amex, it's the world's best card, for example. And so if you're a company, you can focus on the one end with a system of production to produce tangibles like a car, or at the other end, you can have systems of engagement. These are interacting with your customers and other stakeholders. And so one end tends to be tangible and the other end intangible. And so what we were trying to explain is, in a digital transformation, you're moving either to the left or the right of this spectrum. So let me give you some examples I've identified that help us to explain this. And this one is in the automotive industry, driving towards the right, I label it. And if you look at some of the changes, initially you have a car, everybody has a car. One of the things that Toyota has done in the last couple of years is to develop Toyota Safety Sense. And they put a lot of cameras around the car, and then they use recognition technology, which is the AI in this case, or the cognitive computing, to tell you when you're about to have a crash, if there's somebody on your blind side, if there's a pedestrian in front of you, and a whole bunch of other things. And so if you see at the bottom of my slide, the first move to the right is to take the car and add recognition software. So that's making a service-intensive product. Now, if you look at Tesla, it's taken recognition software. It's got a lot of that built into the car. But now it's using the capability of connectivity and its air suspension software to even move further to the right. And so you can think of a Tesla as an app in a car, or a car with an app. It's right in the middle, right? So they've moved across the service spectrum. And that's one of the reasons why Tesla is so successful. It's more than a car. It's a car with a whole bunch of technology in recognition technology, connectivity technology. And so one of the examples, if you've got a steep driveway, Tesla can send a message to your suspension so that when you drive out of the driveway, it raises the suspension and you don't scrape the bottom of your Tesla car. So that's driving to the right. Now, we've got to be politically balanced in universities these days. So here's a swing to the left, right? Apple has long had music streaming. It started off with iTunes, where you loaded up your tunes, but now they have music streaming. What they've recently added is something called spatial audio. And this is when you put on your earpods, as I've got today, or your headset, and you control the difference in timing of the signals, and then how you bounce the signals off the ear to suggest that you are in a concert hall or a recording studio. And so they have now become a product-intensive service, the service being music streaming and the product being their AirPods Pros or AirPod Max. And this is how they move to the left. Now we've got other examples of companies moving across the spectrum from the left to the right. But yeah, so I got pretty interested in this, sort of worked it out on Saturday and then spent Sunday writing it up, and then the last couple of days trying to improve it. So anybody who comes to the course, you'll see the latest version of this built into my discussion of cognitive computing and how you deploy it in your organization. You can see my approach: try and build a generic mental model and then populate it with lots of different examples so that you can use both of these to stimulate your thinking about, in this case, how you might move to the left or the right. But don't let politics dictate whether you're going to move to the left or the right. Look at the business opportunity.
Thanks, Rick. That was quite the weekend project. So it just, before I go to you, Brian, I want to throw in from the audience here, we have someone that was asking about if you could provide the name of the article you mentioned regarding the 6 types of capital model.
For me, yeah, actually, yeah. There's a whole book.
Okay.
Yeah, I can paste in the chat the reference to the book.
That'll work.
Let me just get that up.
And Brian, while he's doing that, would you share a couple of digital transformation projects that Ad Victoriam Solutions has implemented for clients, and kind of what were the results and how did the organizations benefit?
Sure, I'll be glad to. I will say that I'm really questioning the productivity of my weekends now.
Me too.
So we have, as we talked earlier, one of the things that we do at Ad Victoriam is we really focus on helping businesses to digitally transform how they do what they do. One of the companies that, for example, that we've done, and you can find, there are numerous stories available on our website, advictoriamsolutions.com. One of the stories that we have done is for a robotics manufacturing company. A lot of what they did was still contained in a back end, kind of an older ERP. They were running some marketing efforts off of some antiquated technology and working their sales maybe through spreadsheets and face-to-face. And a lot of effort was going in just to making these data pieces come together. What we were able to do is initially build out an e-commerce platform for them that allows them over a 2-year span, really, initially to put the e-commerce in place so that their customers can come buy what they need from them. They can do it again. You want to make it easy for companies to give you business. So this makes it easier for their customers to come to them and to buy what they need to get the products they need, the support they need, et cetera. To build in with that, the marketing efforts, because you can have the greatest tools in the world to sell, but if nobody knows that they're there, you probably aren't going to accomplish very much. So transforming their marketing approach that way as well. And then once you have more people that are aware of your e-commerce platform, once you have more people that are visiting because your marketing efforts are working, now you have to be able to service and deliver the products that you have just sold. So we are now transforming, we have just finished transforming their service department as well, putting them onto the cloud so that they can see what is being bought. They can plan out their human capital even so that they know how many people they're going to need to support what products they have in the future. And their customers can come online and they can buy what they need. They can get the service that they need. And it really brings a level of customer self-service that they simply hadn't been able to provide before. But the great part of it is it delivers that customer self-service while still providing a feel of actual human interaction. And that's the thing that I think we really kind of miss if we just kind of take a sanitary approach to it. Another company that we've done something similar for. They are a roofing products manufacturer out of South Florida. We've done something very similar for them in transforming not only their ability to sell their products, how they sell their products, but how they go out and service in the field. As a result of that, everybody that we have online probably has one of these with them. They are able to take their mobile platform now, go out, service their customers, take pictures of the problems that the customers are having, upload those so that their technicians in the back end can see those. They're able to turn resolutions around faster. But the really great thing is through that level of customer service, people are able to come to their website and type in, I'm having a problem. When can you send somebody out? And they've seen a 75% reduction in wait times just to get somebody to come out and look at it. And again, if you are wanting to drive your bottom line, if you get somebody out who can diagnose the problem faster so that you can get a technician out to fix the problem faster so that you can invoice faster, you're going to drive your bottom line just through that. Of course, you're going to have the human capital to do it. You're going to have the culture change of recognizing that taking a picture on my phone and uploading it and typing in with my thumbs is going to be more effective than handwriting it out on carbon paper and triplicate and tearing off the different colored copies and sending them all over the place. Your invoicing department's going to be able to action on that a lot faster. And it really comes down to actionable data when they need it at whatever level they happen to be, whether you're selling over an e-commerce platform or you're servicing a customer who bought something from you 5 years ago. Being able to have the data you need when you need it so that they feel like at that moment, they are the absolute most important person in the world to your organization. That's when you know that your transformation has succeeded.
Excellent. Excellent point. So just to shift gears a little bit here, guys, so I want to make sure we talk about the symposium itself as well, coming up on the 14th. So Rick, I'm going to pivot to you on this. Since you were here in the beginning with the symposium, can you tell us a little bit more about the symposium itself, how it came about?
Yeah, I was approached last year by Gary Sargent to think about a digital transformation symposium. We spent a lot of time planning it. We met every week for quite a while. And we decided it would be a mix of practical academic work with lots of experienced practitioners like Brian coming in and filling in the gaps in my knowledge. I can work on my weekends and draw up some nice pictures, but I can't put them into the level of experience that Brian has, where he talks about, he took a picture of this and how it changed the relationship with the customer and so forth. I think that a good mix, and I learned this for 10 years, I was the research director for the Advanced Practices Council, the Society for Information Management. And what I learned is CIO, C-level executives, they want a combination of a mental model, like I gave you this spectrum today, to think generally, but then they need lots of examples of who's done this successfully. Right. Because we have a dual model of learning. We have to have this general understanding, but unless you back it up with the credibility of this is what a leader is doing in practice, why would anybody believe me, right? So the course is populated with a few frameworks to help for innovation, to stimulate innovation, but then lots of examples from me and from the practitioners to give you concrete things that you can go back and say, look, here's what company X did. Now, here's how we can think about it more generally. So we just don't imitate them, but we know what the broader mental framework is, and we could go left or right on the spectrum, but not just think, oh, we're going to go that direction because company X did that. So we want to give you general knowledge and then specific knowledge, and that has to be a mix of academics and practitioners. And that was the thinking behind developing and designing the symposium.
That's great. That's great. And Brian, do you have anything to add to that from a corporate perspective?
Nope. I think you hit it pretty well on the head.
Okay. All right. Well, it's excellent to have you guys involved. And Rick, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about some of the key concepts that are going to be covered during the 5 weeks of the session. I know it's 5 weeks starting September 14th, roughly twice a week, right? That you guys meet. Is there any key concepts we can look out for, speakers, that sort of thing you want to highlight?
Well, if you had a look at the book, I start off with explaining what capital creation is and how that operates and how that's the foundation of the the quality of life we live today, how that system works, what the different types of systems are, and then I show what a modern organisation looks like. So I lay that foundation, and then the practitioners come in and they start to show how it's developed. But if people come to the course, they're going to leave with 3 major mental models that they can then use for innovation. You know, you can think of this course as also being one in innovation literacy. We're trying to help you understand how you innovate through the use of technology, mainly digital technology, to improve the capital productivity of your company. And we do that in 2 ways. Right? I don't want to give too much away. I want people to come along, but then I want to entice you to buy the book as well, you see. But, you know, past experience is that when I've introduced these models to people, they find them very helpful in thinking about the issues in their organisation. And they think a little bit differently as well. And all of this is firsthand as well. You know, my material is firsthand. You're having practitioners telling you exactly what they do. So you can ask questions and you'll get a response from someone who's doing this and thinking about this all the time. And they don't have to go to a textbook or look up something. They know it's up there, right? Might have consumed a few weekends and a lot of hair, but it's up there.
Got it. And no, that's great. Thank you. And I know the symposium's designed for executives, right? Mid-level managers, emerging leaders. Are there any particular work groups or types of organizations that you would say would really benefit for this or should attend, or would it be beneficial to everyone?
I think it's beneficial to everybody in the groups that you mentioned. I think it's probably more beneficial if you have 2 or 3 people from diverse areas of the same organisation come along, because we will all see things a little bit differently, right? We all have a different lens and background. But if an organisation wants to do a digital transformation, it has to bring in these diversities. And so if people attend the course together, they've got the same language and vocabulary to talk about, because we're going to introduce some new ways of thinking and new words. So when we talk about symbolic capital, if everybody's on the same page, then I think that helps the organisation. So it's better done with several people from the organisation and not one trying to go back and tell people what happened, right? Because they'll just see one piece of it, that we all have our blinkers on how we view the world.
If I can add to that, one of the we mentioned earlier about the pitfalls and some of the strategies that leaders can use. Dr. Watson mentioned making sure that everybody is speaking the same language, and I think that even goes back to one of the pitfalls. If you are using words that others in your organization are using very similar words, but there is no agreement on what that means, then I think you're exposing yourself to a risk that you simply don't need. So having an agreement within your organization on what these different terms mean, and then what your vision for those are, and you agree on those things, that really becomes exponentially powerful in your transformation.
That's excellent. Thank you. Before we wrap things up here, guys, is there any other points you'd like to make about this topic or the symposium before we go? And Rick, any other books you want to mention? Anything? Any other weekend projects?
Did we get any questions, Jason, that we need to address?
I'm checking again for that, and I don't believe so. And I think we had actually, I think LinkedIn might have hiccuped for a second there, so we lost some folks, but not anything that hasn't been addressed in the chat already. We've had a few logistical questions about how to sign up and that sort of thing, but I think we're nothing outside of that yet.
I think I've said just about all I want to say at this stage. Otherwise, I'll become repetitive. I hope I see some of you at the symposium, and that you bring along a lot of questions then. so that we have a really good interactive experience and very much a first-hand experience for you.
Absolutely. Agree with that. And Brian, you have anything else?
I would like to take a minute to encourage people to take part in the symposiums. Again, there is value in the shared ideas of what different businesses are doing. In fact, I think one of the reasons why many people will bring a partner on board to help with their transformation is that that kind of best of breed approach, that experience that comes from behind the partner. And attending a symposium like this, listening to the questions that are asked or reading in the books and coming to that agreement on definitions and all of the things that we've talked about, it really leads to a not a how-to, but how did you? And that goes back to that experiential piece that we're talking about. So coming in, asking your questions, understanding how other businesses or other leaders have led in thought to transform their organization or to recommend changes. It simply will make your organization better. If anybody is questioning the value of it, you will go away with a better vision of what your organization can do simply by listening to what others are doing.
Good point. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and I think it's important to point that out as well. The networking piece, the
Right.
connections that you'll make with something like this for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and thanks everybody for joining us today. And our apologies if the technology got a little wonky there, but I think everything's up and running, and we will post a recording of this later to everyone who attended as well. So we'll follow back up with that. And just again, the symposium starts on September 14th, runs for about 5 weeks. It is virtual. It meets twice a week for a couple of hours each day. And we encourage anyone who's interested to visit our website. It's at terry.uga.edu/executive. And you can just click the link for the Digital Transformation Symposium there. And of course, you can always reach out to us right here on LinkedIn. And we'll be happy to field your questions and reach out to you or talk to you directly as well. And I hope you all can join us again next week. We have a talk on business process management with Dr. Tim Chester. And please remember also to follow us on follow the UGA Executive Education on LinkedIn for the latest updates on our programs and this speaker series. Again, thanks to everybody, and be well and be safe.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Guys.